This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, good morning everyone. Shalom Aleichem, Bruchim Habayim. We're continuing in Mishna Berura, Daf Hashavua. We're in the middle of Siman Yud Aleph, toward the end of Sif Tes. The Mechaber said you need to make the hole in the length of the talis not above 3 fingers, because that's called the beged, not below the amount of space there is between the joint of the thumb to the nail, because it has to be on the corner and not below the corner. And this, okay, says the Mishna Berura of Kata Memvav Ad Hatzi Pairen, that there is from the joint until the nail, Makoim Hashavua Lahabasar, the place that is equal to the flesh. Honestly, I don't know what that means. We know that the shiur is from the thickness of the joint until the thumbnail. But what does it mean until the place that's equal to the flesh? I would have thought from where I guess he means as follows. It has to be, let's say, on the thumb, from the joint until the nail. But where exactly on the nail? Let's say, I guess the nail could be long. A person could have a long nail. You know, the Kaihanim had long fingernails. They could do malika. The place where the nail is equal to the flesh of the actual thumb, in other words, toward the end of the thumb, and not beyond that. In other words, not if you cut it too short or not if you let it grow too long. It's where it's shaveh to the basar. That's how I'm reading it. Now, the Ramah says that this is measured straight and not on an angle. In other words, it has to be within 3 thumbs of the edge, but it also has to be after, from the joint to the end of the nail. So do you measure that diagonal, or do you measure that straight? So the Mishna Berura says, perish misafas habeged, from the edge of the garment, moididin beyoisher, you measure straight, hashosh etzbois, v'chein hasher the kesher gudal, bein ba'orech ubein ba'roichav, both in the length and in the width, kilakaman b'soif sif yud. Meaning, if this is the tzitzis, so it has to be within 3 of the length, within 3 of the width, and after the kesher agoido, both in the length and both in the width. Even though, so what does the Mechaber mean earlier? Yasa nekev ba'oirech hatalis. Here we're learning it has to be both in the length and in the width. So the Mishna Berura said we'll have to see in Sivkata Nun Beis. Okay. We don't measure the shiur diagonal. When you measure something on the diagonal, it minimizes it by 2/5, right? We know 1 squared plus a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So the diagonal is going to be basically 2/5 of what it would be if it were straight. Okay, we continue in Sif Yud. Im haya rachaik mehakanaf maloi kesher gudal. Let's say the strings were far enough from the corner, a full thumb's worth ad hatzi pairen, meaning the correct shiur. V'nittiku mechutei ha'erev ad shalei nisha by kasher. And now, let's say some of the warp got frayed, it came off of the beged, and now you don't have the requisite shiur between the hole and the edge of the beged kasher. Why? Since it had the requisite shiur when you put on the tzitzit, when you put the tzitzit on the garment. So in other words, you have a beged, and you make a hole in the beged. You ready? This is the hole. This is the hole. You can't see it on the... Okay, this is the hole. and then all of a sudden some of the beged frayed, and now you don't have the requisite shiur. So it's okay. At the time you made it, it had the requisite shiur. Haga v'noigin lasis imra sviv hanekev. The custom is to make a hem around the hole, so it doesn't tear, and become less than the shiur. We also make a hem, an edging, on the edge of the garment, lamata, mehai taima, basically in order to preserve the shiur. Yesh oimrim, some say, shebesech roichav habeged, ein lo shiur. Some say the width of the beged has no shiur. There is no shiur on the width. This is all on the length. But there is no shiur on the width. Now what does that mean, there's no shiur on the width? That you could make it even less than, you could make the hole even less than the space between the joint and the nail. The Mishna Berura is going to say that it can't be more than 3 fingers, but there's no shiur that it has to be more than kesher agoidal. Now, what exactly is the length and what is the width? We still don't know. How do you define the length of the tzitzis? How do you define the width? Because the Mishna Berura says in Nun Gimel, ein lo shiur lamata. On the bottom of the beged, it could be less than kesher agoidal. So we'll have to see how we define length and width. Says in Mechaber again, there is no shiur in the width, some say. Some say the width is like the length. That would be the more correct opinion. The opinion that ein lo shiur b'roichav is the tur. The shiur that roichav ka'irach is the Mari Abuav b'shem the Smag and the Nuke Yosef and the Baliter and Benu Yoina, and the Mechaber sides with that shita. Says the Mishna Berura, Sivkatan Memches V'nitku. So basically, it was Rachik Me'akanaf M'lai Kesher Gaidal, and it tore. V'nitku Mechutei Ha'erev. Says the Mishna Berura, V'hu adin im nikra b'hanekev ad sha'idezeh lo nishra b'kashir. Not only if the beged tears by the edge, so now you don't have the shiur, but if the whole tore, that by doing that you don't have the shiur. Even if this is after the first knot and the first wounding, it works. Now you have mechute ha'erev, umemela nismaid oirech habeged al yedei zeh. Because the warp strings unraveled, so now the length of the garment diminished. The length diminished. And according to what the Mechaber says further, the same halach would apply if the beged diminished in its width. Bisha. Okay. So let us see Sivkatan. Okay, move everyone. Yeah. Bisha. At the time you put it on, it was good. Ukraksiv. The pasuk says, "Va'asu lohem tzitzis al kanfei v'gdeihem." You should place the tzitzis on the corner of the garment. So the hakpada that has to be on the corner and not on the garment, or it has to be on the corner and not below the corner. Lo yekpida Torah lo shebashas asiyah yu ala kanaf. The Torah is only makbid that at the time that you made it, it should be on the corner. V'lo yacher kach v'hainu davka oisan hatzitzah shenislu behechsher. That is only those strings that were put on properly. Avlim roitza lahata by tzitzas acherois. But if you want to put on other tzitzas, which is a new making, pasol ache yispar metchila, the beged has to be sewn up first. Kilakaman b'siman tezvav ayin sham pachais mekashir. This is going in the words of the Ramah. The Ramah says the minhag is to make a hem around the hole so it doesn't tear and it will be less than the shear. What do you mean? We just said it's kosher. After the Eved kosher, even though if it becomes less than the shear, it's still kosher. Mikol makom toiv la'asos kain. It's still good to do this. Kedei shelo yavoyu haroyim loymar shu pasol. because there's an element here of maris ha'ayin. People who see will say it's possible. Not everybody knows that as long as you put it on, bekashros, it's good. Now we come to the big Yesh Omrim here. The big Yesh Omrim holds that in the width of the garment there is no shear. Why? The Svira Lahu, this opinion holds the Iker Shem Kanav Shayach al Safa HaTachtoin Shel Oirech HaBeged Loy Al Roichav HaBeged. This opinion holds the primary label corner is referring to the bottom edge of the length of the garment, not the width of the garment. So what does this mean? This is a very important Mishna Berura, because the Mishna Berura, when the Mechaber and Sivtes said you should make the nekev ba'oirech hatalis, the Mishna Berura there said, well, we don't really know what the oirech is. You have to see nun beis. So here we are. Roichav habeged. The width, kari mashem malubash by adam kaimasai meiroshai l'raglav. The width is what a person wears to his height, from his head to his foot. Va'oirech habeged, the length, kari mashem misatef by. The derech ha'itav hu ba'oirech. The manner of wrapping is the length. So is the Mishna Berura saying that the definition of the width of the beged is the exact opposite of what I would have thought? That the width is from top to bottom? And therefore, by the width, there's no shear, meaning the Mishna Berura says in Nun Gimel, Ein lo shear, hainu lamata, that's below. In other words, going downward, not to the side, but going downward, there's no shear. So it seems like the roichav habeged is what a person is melubash in his height, not his width. I don't know, why is that called the width? Why is the width called what you wear from top to bottom? I would have said that's the length. No? Isn't that the longer part? Isn't top to bottom longer than from side to side? Why is that called length? Anyone have any insight on that? That seems to me what he's saying. Okay. Well, let's try to research that today. I'm going to let you go. Bracha v'hatzlacha. Have a great day.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.